Hey everyone, Pugs here with two new reviews for y'all. Today I'm covering the Inmates of Summer and To Save a Squirrel. I feel like these two episodes just belong together. Listen, this is one of those many things that I don't know how to explain, but I just think that these sister episodes work very well together. I guess they both have that element of living hard. I don't know. Do y'all get what I'm saying? I'm telling you there's something, but describing it is eluding me. So I guess I'll just move on. As always, thank you to everyone watching today. I appreciate y'all so much. And with that, let's just get right into it. I feel like I'm about to bamboozle y'all with the Inmates of Summer. Yet again, I am here with an episode that is quite forgotten, which I guess makes at least 3 episodes in a row now, if not more, depending on your judgments for what counts as forgotten. Something about latter halves of seasons tend to lend themselves to being more likely to fading into the background, I guess. Anyway, like I always am, I am very against this episode being forgotten, and that's for a few different reasons, including the reason why I think I'll bamboozle y'all. I'm gonna keep that reason close to my chest for now, because maybe for once I won't spoil y'all. The beginning of this episode gets things moving shockingly fast. We see SpongeBob for 2 seconds, and then suddenly Grass Skirt Chase starts playing as Patrick blasts onto the scene. This speedy setup almost makes me think I'm about to watch a much shorter episode, and hey, I'm not complaining. Faster setups can lead to one of two things: a more complex plot or more complex gags. This episode ends up including the former. SpongeBob is adorable in his little camp outfit, and speaking of camp, this is another one of those episodes that toes the line between adult and child for SpongeBob's character. On one hand, he's going to summer camp. On the other hand, he ends up at prison camp. It's also kind of funny how SpongeBob is left behind by his intended camp because he's saying goodbye to Patrick. That camp counselor is very much incompetent for not noticing the camper crying on the dock. I also like how this first part of the episode, the first minute or so, is more visual storytelling than anything else, given that most of the dialogue is just SpongeBob and Patrick crying, and we see what happens visually rather than getting exposition about it. Not that SpongeBob SquarePants is a show rife with exposition, but y'all know what I mean. The visual storytelling is also what allows the setup to go by so fast. It doesn't take long for us to get introduced to the standout character of this episode, the Warden. See, this man is why I find this episode to be rather similar to Mrs. Puff You're Fired. And if you remembered, I adored the one-off character in that episode, Sergeant Roderick. The way that SpongeBob and Patrick assume that the Warden is a porter, and his reaction to that is pretty funny, and sets a good precedent for what we're going to be seeing from this guy for the rest of the episode. I also really like his design. Seriously, this guy gets me laughing so hard throughout the entire episode. His utter disdain at SpongeBob and Patrick daring to enjoy themselves is absolutely hilarious, especially with the great dialogue he's given and the excellent delivery by Ronald Lee Ermey on all of his lines. Fun fact, Ermey used to be a Marine Corps drill instructor. I bet he used some of that energy when recording these lines. Whatever he did, it paid off for sure. I just love SpongeBob and Patrick on the prison island. The way the other prisoners assume they're tough when they're really just fools, the way they just soak in the chum when they're thrown in the hole and end up enjoying themselves, and the way they undermine every effort to discipline them and break their spirits. All of that is just so damn great. SpongeBob's endless optimism and positivity is always enjoyable to watch, especially in situations like this where he contrasts against his environment starkly. That's one of the reasons why the SpongeBob SquarePants movie worked so well. I love that SpongeBob and Patrick want to improve everyone else's experiences as well. That's so sweet. And SpongeBob's idea to have a play is super adorable and just so SpongeBob, and it's made even better by the Warden's reaction to the proposal. Things continue to improve when the prisoners realize that they can escape by using the play to their advantage, and this plot point is moved along in a pretty funny scene. I love that we get that funny scene of the prisoners plotting to escape because it makes watching the play even more entertaining as we anticipate what is to come, and we can feel some suspense rising while watching the production. As for the play itself, this was a pretty entertaining scene, and the frequent reaction shots to the Warden were great as well. And then all of this goodness and anticipation comes to a head when the prisoners try to make their escape, only for it to be revealed, with perfect comedic timing might I add, that the boat is completely non-functional. What's even better is that this isn't even the end of the episode, and there's more fun to come. See, this is exactly why the setup of this episode being so fast was to this episode's benefit, because we got to fit in this last little bit of plot, and the pacing is made better for it. The Warden's reaction to this mutiny and blatant offense to musical theater is hilarious, as I've been saying throughout this episode. Listen, the Warden is just a highlight of this entire venture. What can I say? This episode would not be anywhere near as funny without him. We then get a payoff from the very beginning of the episode as the incompetent camp counselor from the camp SpongeBob's supposed to be at comes to the prison island to retrieve him. Well, he managed to paddle across a bunch of, ocean, so maybe he's not too incompetent. Anyway, I love how disgusted and revolted the warden is by the activities on Sun Fun Island, not to mention how the criminals are too. And I love how in the end, once the warden realizes how this could be a perfect punishment, SpongeBob and Patrick hate these activities too. It's an excellent callback to SpongeBob's earlier comment about the Sun Fun boat looking boring, and it's just so freaking funny that this is the thing to finally allow the warden to achieve his goal of breaking SpongeBob and Patrick's spirits. Just an excellent ending to this excellent episode. I really like the Inmates of Summer, and as I've already alluded to, this episode is unbelievably underrated. And I think that's why I might be bamboozling y'all, because not a lot of people talk so great about this episode, but I really do love it. And for once, I'm able to truly articulate what makes this episode work so well for me. See, this episode works primarily because SpongeBob never realizes how screwed he is, and he never hates where he's at. His endless optimism, along with the warden's entire character, really make this episode great, because the environment is already sad and desperate. SpongeBob and Patrick is a great contrast to that. Not to mention that because the warden is so stringent and rigid and quick to anger, he's a great foil to SpongeBob and Patrick, which is another great source of humor. And as I said before, the voice acting for the warden is fantastic and adds to his character. Apparently, the warden has appeared once more in the Patrick Star Show, albeit with a different voice, as unfortunately Emily passed away in 2018. Well, even if it was just a one-off appearance, I appreciate the work he did in this episode because it's fantastic. And because this episode is so hilarious and has no problems at all, it belongs in my amazing tier, where it comes in with a score of 9.4 out of 10. Oh boy, to Save a Squirrel, yet another forgotten episode. What are we at now? 4? And maybe forgotten's not the right word, but no one ever talks about this episode, ever. So what else am I supposed to think? This is an episode that low-key feels like it could be part of Season 6. Not for any particular reason, it just has those vibes. And before anyone says anything, I'm not at all imparting any sort of judgment on the episode, not yet. The first real judgment I'll make is that I'm glad this episode recognizes the girl boss that is Sandy Cheeks. That is all. Well, not actually, since I have to review the episode now. The first couple minutes of To Save a Squirrel are pretty entertaining. I like that SpongeBob and Patrick are running like bats out of hell just because of a little grasshopper, and the visual gag of them in Sandy's suit is pretty fun. I also like that Sandy was ready to throw hands for them. That was very wholesome. And I love how SpongeBob and Patrick are still in pieces about the thing even after Sandy explains the bug is harmless. All of this, of course, leads to our main plot of the episode, which is Sandy's survival trip. You know, it had never crossed my mind that Sandy would be into camping until I watched this episode. Also, wait a minute, hold up. Okay, so did anyone play the Truth or Square game? I don't know if this was a DS exclusive thing, but I had, and still do have, the DS version, and there were 2 levels that took place in Kelp Forest. In this game, levels were associated with a character that could be used as a power-up, and both Kelp Forest levels used Sandy as their character. Could that be a reference to this episode? I mean, it would make sense given that Sandy has nothing to do with Kelp Forest otherwise, and it would make far more sense for Squidward to be the character, given all the references to Club SpongeBob that are in these levels. I don't know. Anyway, I love that Sandy is ready to MacGyver it up in the wild. Do y'all get that reference? Not because I'm saying I'm old, and I don't want to be one of those older people that are like, oh, kids don't know anything, but like, how many of y'all have seen or heard of MacGyver in any iteration? It did have a reboot a few years ago, but I didn't watch that shit. Anyway, the gag with the flashback with Squidward was hilarious, and I really, really like how the twist of the episode was kind of obvious, or at least the groundwork for it was laid, at the beginning of the episode when you look back on it. Because why in the world would Sandy explain her exact plan to SpongeBob and Patrick, knowing that they're impulsive fools who would absolutely tag along if them stealing her rocket ship was any indication? And also, how would she not hear their screaming while driving? But let's pretend we don't know the twist for a second and say that SpongeBob and Patrick's plan to join Sandy backfires spectacularly as Patrick opens the back door and they get stuck in the wilderness. Now I'm reminded of Club SpongeBob. Also, yeah, Patrick lacks a whole lot of sense in this episode, or at least in these first few minutes, but it's not grating. Maybe because SpongeBob's reactions are pretty funny, I don't know. Somehow I don't even get annoyed or bored at the whole part where Patrick thinks for like 30 seconds straight. I think it's because the visuals keep changing and SpongeBob's reactions are interesting, and these things help a lot. I also love that this is our transition to SpongeBob and Patrick getting a little bit loony, complete with some malnourished, pinprick-eyed designs for the two of them. Speaking of loony, we're introduced to some guy who's apparently been living in this cave for 40 years, and he only serves to instigate the coming conflict between SpongeBob and Patrick. Maybe the guy instigated them on purpose because he was so bored, and what a fun conflict this is. Sometimes I just love when SpongeBob gets all paranoid like this, like in Bummer Vacation. And it's hilarious in this episode. Like, Tom Kenny once again does what he does best and voices the hell out of SpongeBob's madness, especially when he's inside the Krusty Krab replica. And then when SpongeBob goes fully loony and starts trying to cook Patrick, things get quite entertaining as the two try to eat each other. It's a good intermix of hilarity and tension and visual gags, especially with the part where Patrick tries to make stew out of SpongeBob. And then in the end, I wonder if the ketchup was purposefully used to make SpongeBob and Patrick look like they were covered in blood. That's pretty dark if so. I like it. We then get the big reveal that the old dude was Sandy all along. I love how she decided to test SpongeBob and Patrick's survival skills with no warning whatsoever, and then decided to watch and be entertained by it all. That's some queen behavior, I don't know what to tell you. The non-failure medals were cute as well, and then the ending of the episode was great, with SpongeBob and Patrick turning on Sandy. Yeah, that's some universal justice, even if Sandy is my girl. There's nothing else I can really say about To Save a Squirrel. I've got no real complaints about it. It's a fun hidden gem. At most, the beginning of this one is slightly weak, but once SpongeBob and Patrick land themselves in the wilderness, the episode gets into its groove and becomes a triumph of hilarity and chaos. A worthy addition to my amazing tier, where it comes in with a score of 9 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this review with some closing thoughts of mine, though I've got not that many. I mean, the first thing I'm thinking of is how both of today's episodes can qualify as hidden gems. Come on, y'all, talk about these episodes some more. Give them some love. Shaking my damn head, this latter part of season 5 will be appreciated if I have anything to say about it. At least, the episodes that I like will be appreciated. I make no promises for the ones I don't like, if there are any. I'm not gonna spoil y'all so easily. And I actually just thought of this right now, like it's not even in the script, but thinking of those non-failure medals, that just made me remember this old SpongeBob game that was on the App Store. I don't know if it was on the Android equivalent or not, but it was called SpongeBob Marbles and Slides. Does anyone remember this shit? I swear to God, this was like my favorite freaking SpongeBob app. I just loved it so much. And they had like these little trophies, and one of the trophies they had was the non-failure medal, I'm pretty sure. So that's why I remembered it. But that game was so fun, and its soundtrack was so good. And like it had like a story that was like overarching, but of course the story never finished, and I don't think I ever even finished all the all the levels because they were fucking hard. Okay. Anyway, so that's gonna be fun for me to write all the subtitles of, I guess. Let me move on to the actual scripted part of this closing thoughts. So because I needed a reminder, I just now looked at what episodes I've got coming up for my reviews, and we're actually remarkably close to the end of season 5, which is so weird because I feel like I just started. But anyway, next review is actually going to be a special. I was not expecting that, but I'm excited because making the visuals for this special is going to be so fun, given the Old West theme, as next episode is Best of the West. I'll see y'all then.